I want to talk about this content creation part and like the education piece because I think it's still important for people that are getting in to learn about this stuff, and it's not happening necessarily on the biggest influencers page. Although there are some that are really dope, like yourself, it's happening in the discords. It's happening in the second, or third tier Discord category where they're having a deep conversation. That's where you should be. And really, that was where my education kind of came in. I think it was Slack. I got it just involved in some type of Slack of guys who were involved in the space, and it was learning another language. It was like every night I would just read that Slack and start to take in what being in blockchain was all about, man. So that was a really good piece on Bitcoin Talk. I'm sure you were a part of or got to experience a lot of interesting talks on Bitcoin Talk in 2013, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't super active. I would go on there and check it out. I wasn't posting really on there. I was more of a lurker,
Exactly.
I wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is, I want to be a whole. I wasn't like coding anything, and at that time when it comes to like any kind of Bitcoin code or anything like that was associated with it or really involved in the industry. I would say I wasn't really an active participant, but I would go on there and look at threads here and there and kind of see what was going on every once in a while. And but yeah, I mean, it was early, so there wasn't a ton going on.
Yeah.
There wasn't a ton going on. It wasn't like there was tons of projects or tons of exchanges or things like that. So it was a relatively it was relatively tame when it comes to what we have now in comparison. The overwhelming amount of information and projects and launches and technology and everything now. I mean, it's just over the top.
Yeah, I want to get your take on Bitcoin maxis because there's some people that's all they do is I have no idea what do Bitcoin maxis do all day. Where you're talking about all these different projects on Ethereum and all these other blockchains, what do Bitcoin maxis do all day, Stash?
That's a damn good question, man. Bitcoin.
Yeah, private keys, security.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't understand where they come from because I do. I mean, I'm not at all obviously a Bitcoin maximalist. I do believe that that's where everyone should get started. When you talk about the educational part of things, there's a lot of people out there that whereas they may have some specific knowledge, I think I feel a lot of times they don't have everyone's good long-term success at heart truly. And so if they're not telling you to start with Bitcoin, and that's where as a beginner, and they're telling you, yeah, jump into this DeFi project or get into like that's not really the best way, man. Bitcoin is the best way to get started because it's an easy entry into the industry. It allows you to be very stable in comparison to other things, we'll say, right? And allows you to kind of learn that base layer that everything else is kind of built off, that springboarded everything else. And I think that is pretty important. And so I mean, what are Bitcoin maxis talking about all the time? I mean, they're talking about the Bitcoin things. Things are happening
Bitcoin
there.
things.
It's just they're talking about Bitcoin things. Things are happening on the network. They don't happen very fast. Everyone these days is everything's all about faster, and faster is not always necessarily the best thing. We try and like push that in a lot of other areas in crypto, but it's not always really the best solution. And so for what Bitcoin is doing and kind of where it's found its place and its home as kind of more of a store of value than versus being like an everyday spending currency, I think that not being fast is actually not that bad of a trait there. So I mean, I don't know, man. Bitcoin maxis just talk about how Bitcoin can change the world, and I think it's more of a macro look on things,
Sure.
And that's kind of where they focus on that macro environment that Bitcoin kind of resides in, and how it can really still continue to help people in a lot of different ways. And so to talk about more of on a larger macro scale versus getting to the intricacies like we kind of do with altcoins and things like that. So.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how Bitcoin reacts to like these macro events in the world too. That we're living through right now. So I'm watching Bitcoin closely, of course. I think you made a great point in that it should be an introductory for a lot of people. You should really kind of have I would say Web3 or blockchain ethos from Bitcoin, right? Because it was the first. It did start all of this. So once you do that, make your way down the rabbit hole a few rungs and you'll get to the NFT space.